Live from the Sports Madness studios here in San Antonio, Texas, you are in the Madhouse watching the Sports Madness podcast. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Here in episode 6, we are going to talk about the NBA. We're going to talk about men's and women's college basketball. We're going to talk about a little bit of international cricket today in the Madhouse as well. Also, we have a couple of teasers that we're going to give to you here at the end of the episode. But first of all, we do want to thank all of you for joining us on today's episode. You'll notice, those of you that are watching, please note that there's a live chat here off to the side. Please feel free to leave us a message. We'll respond to it here in the middle of the podcast. We love hearing from people. It's great. We do want to invite everybody that's watching here on YouTube to take a minute to please like the video, subscribe to the channel. The more of you that subscribe and follow and like this, the more content we can do, the more that kind of gives us an indicator that you like what we're doing here in the Madhouse. So we're going to start out with the NBA. We're going to start out first just kind of talking a little bit about the standings and where things are going right now. We're just a little bit beyond the halfway mark in this season. We're talking a little bit about some things maybe that have been surprising up to this point, some things that maybe have not been so surprising up to this point in the season. For me, the top surprise has been the Cleveland Cavaliers, 37-9 on the year. They have definitely cooled off a little bit. They're 5-5 in the last 10 games, but they've started out the season a house of fire, and they're not really letting up too much at all. 22-3 at home, 15-6 on the road, 24-6 within the Eastern Conference. 5.5 games back from them are the Boston Celtics, and you have the New York Knicks sitting in third, which are another fairly pleasant surprise. You've got the Bucks in fourth, the Pacers in fifth, and the Miami Heat sitting in sixth position. Then you kind of have that 7 through 10 slot that are all slated for the play-in round. You have the Orlando Magic currently sitting in seventh, Detroit in eighth, Atlanta in ninth, and Chicago in 10th. You have Philadelphia 76ers sitting then back a game and a half from the Bulls in the 11th spot. And then a little bit of a gap. You have Toronto 4 games in back of them, followed by the Nets and the Hornets. And then leading up or bringing up the rear are the Washington Wizards with a record of 6-39, best 4 dead last in the NBA. In the Western Conference, not a huge surprise here. You have the Oklahoma City Thunder leading things off at 37-8. 6 games in back of them. I think what the surprise for me is just how much of a gap they've built. They're 6 games up on the second place Houston Rockets. Then you have the Memphis Grizzlies in third. Denver sitting in fourth. Denver just a good solid team, and I don't count them out until the season is over and they are well and truly eliminated, because they have the tools, they have the know-how, and they have the experience. In fifth, you have the Lakers, and then sixth, you have the Clippers. And then in that 7 through 10 slot, and it's really, really here. In the 7 through 10 slot, you've got Minnesota at 25-21, Phoenix at 24-21, Dallas 25-22, and Sacramento at 24-22. So you have 4 teams all within a game of each other right there. And then just a game and a half out are the Golden State Warriors. A game in back of them are the San Antonio Spurs at 20-23. Portland at 17-29 is kind of where that gap starts to hit there. And then 5.5 games in back of them are the New Orleans Pelicans. And then the Utah Jazz bringing up the rear at 10-34. We are kind of starting to see a little bit of what happened a few years ago. And we talked about it a couple episodes back, where the Western Conference is stronger than the Eastern Conference as a whole. And right now, the San Antonio Spurs, who are sitting 2 spots out of the play-in right now, if they were in the Eastern Conference, would be 2 games in, or two spots into the play-in, fairly comfortably in the 9 slot right now. And so you've got kind of a little bit of disparity going on right there between the two conferences. It may sort itself out. It may not. It may be one of those situations where a team that is pretty decent ends up missing the playoffs in the Western Conference, whereas they would have made it in the Eastern Conference. There are 4 games on the slate for tonight. You have the Lakers on the road at the Philadelphia 76ers. I feel like the Lakers win this game fairly handily. Vegas has the Lakers a 4.5-point favorite. I think it's going to be more than that. You have, and that game is at 6:30 Central Time on TNT, 6:30 tonight. As well, you have the Houston Rockets and the Atlanta Hawks, and this is a game that was rescheduled from January 11th. This would have been one of those that was moved due to weather. Houston on the road at Atlanta. Houston should win that game fairly handily. At 9 o'clock Central Time, you have the Utah Jazz on the road at the Golden State Warriors. Utah 10-34 on the year, Golden State 22-23. Golden State coming in a heavy favorite. That stands to reason. I think that Golden State will win the game handily. Vegas has them as a 13.5-point favorite. That sounds about right. Utah's just not fielding a good team at the moment. And then the nightcap on TNT, you have the Milwaukee Bucks on the road at the Portland Trail Blazers. Milwaukee 26-18 on the year. Portland 17-29. Milwaukee a 5.5-point road favorite. I feel like they'll win tonight's game by more than that. I think that they're, and I think that they'll take care of business rather handily against the Portland Trail Blazer team that just hasn't been able to find really any traction this year. Keeping it in basketball, but heading over to the college game, there are a few ranked teams in action tonight. Number 15, St. John's, are on the road at Georgetown. And you remember, well, some of you will remember back in like the 80s, that St. John's versus Georgetown matchup was a really big rivalry game. It doesn't quite have the zest that it used to have anymore, but it's still a big, important game for both teams. St. John's 17-3 on the year, 8-1 in the Big East. Ranked number 15, they're a 4.5-point road favorite. St. John's should win this game, although Georgetown is a good team. They're 13-7. They're 4-5 in conference. St. John's just has the better team. They have the more athletic team. They should win. That game's at 5:30 Central Time on FS1. 6 o'clock on ESPN this evening. You have an SEC matchup, Kentucky on the road at Tennessee. Tennessee is a 10.5-point home favorite in this one. I think Kentucky goes on the road and wins the game outright. I think Kentucky's better than Tennessee. I think that Tennessee is struggling a little bit at the moment. I think Kentucky is going to get this done. I think they're the better team. I think they have the better coaching. I think they're just better, and I think they win this game. In Knoxville, Tennessee, number 8 in the nation, 17-3 on the year, 4-3 in the SEC. Kentucky, number 12 in the nation, they're 14-5 and 3-3 in SEC play. At 6 o'clock Central Time on the ACC network, you have Wake Forest on the road at number 21 Louisville. This is going to be a good game. Vegas has it a 9.5-point favorite for Louisville. I don't think so. I think this game's going to come down to the wire. Wouldn't surprise me at all if it went to overtime. Wake Forest 15-5 on the year, 7-2 in the ACC. Louisville, number 21 ranked in the nation, 15-5 on the year, so similar season record, and they are 8-1 in the ACC. This is going to be a good game. For my money, this is going to be the matchup of the night. I think this is going to be the best game. Yes, you have the luster of Tennessee versus Kentucky. I think we have some SEC bias going on in some of those rankings. So I don't think that game is going to be as good as advertised. This one I think is going to be actually much better than advertised. I think Louisville gets it done, but I think it's going to be like a 1 or 2 possession game at the most. 7 o'clock Central Time on Peacock, you have Minnesota on the road at number 7 Michigan State. Sparty beginning to take their rightful place back in national prevalence. Michigan State are a 14.5-point home favorite. I think that's about right. I think that's kind of how this game's going to go. Minnesota 11-9 on the season, 3-6 in Big Ten play. Michigan State, again, ranked number 7 nationally. They are 17-2 on the year and undefeated 8-0 in Big Ten play. For my money right now, Michigan State are the favorites, have to be the favorites to win the Big Ten. They're just taking care of business. And like I said, they're a 14.5-point home favorite. I think that's about right. At 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus Central Time, you have Central Florida on the road in Fog Allen to take on Kansas. And Kansas all of a sudden looks pretty vulnerable. For years and years and years in the Big 12, you had the Big 12 running through Lawrence, and now it no longer runs through Lawrence. Kansas is not all that impressive looking. They should take care of business fairly handily tonight. Vegas has them at 12.5-point favorite. That sounds about right. UCF 13-6 on the year, 4-4 in Big 12 play. Kansas 14-5 on the year and 5-3 in Big 12 play. And I can't remember the last time that Kansas had dropped 3 home games in the first half of the Big 12 season like they have this year. I think Kansas wins tonight fairly handily, but people aren't afraid of playing at Fog Allen anymore. Still a great atmosphere, still a wonderful place to play, but it doesn't strike the fear and intimidation that it has in years past. 7:30 Central Time on Fox Sports 1, you have Marquette, number 9 Marquette on the road at Butler. Marquette, an 8.5-point favorite on the road. I think this game is a blowout. I think Marquette blows Butler out of the water, and I don't think it's going to be particularly friendly even on the road. Marquette, again, ranked number 9 in the nation. They're 17-3 on the year, 8-1 in the Big East. In my opinion, I think Marquette have to be the favorites to win the Big East, although St. John's may have something to say about that. Butler 9-11 on the season, 2-7 in Big East play. They've just not been competitive. They're not the team that they have been in years past. And then you have the nightcap. As far as the ranked matchups, you have at 8 p.m. on the SEC Network, you have Oklahoma on the road at number 13, Texas A&M playing in College Station. Oklahoma 15-4 on the year, 2-4 in SEC play. Texas A&M ranked number 13 nationally. They are 15-5 on the season, 4-3 in SEC play, coming off an absolutely brutal loss to their rival Texas. And it's the kind of loss that, if they're not careful, could spiral things for them. I think Oklahoma goes on the road and wins today in College Station. A&M, again, an 8.5-point favorite at home. And on paper, that's how it should go. I think A&M is going to be demoralized. They just blew a 22-point lead to Texas and lost. And they have a pretty young team there in College Station. I think that Oklahoma goes in. I think they go on the road and get the job done. I think that Oklahoma is kind of starting to overcome the shell shock of the SEC conversion just a little bit. And I think they're going to be just fine. I do want to take a minute to look at the overall men's college basketball rankings. You have Auburn sitting at number 1, a unanimous choice number 1, 18-1 on the year. You have Duke at number 2, Iowa State number 3, Alabama number 4, Florida number 5, Houston number 6. So you have a whole lot of SEC and Big 12 in the top 6 there. Michigan State at 7, Tennessee at 8, Marquette at 9, Purdue at 10. And then after the top 10, you have Kansas at 11, and then Kentucky, A&M, Mississippi State, St. John's at 15, Oregon at 16, Wisconsin, Illinois, Memphis, Missouri at 20, Louisville at 21, Texas Tech, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt seeing the rankings again for the first time in a long time, and UConn sitting at number 25. And I don't know necessarily that UConn belongs. I just don't. If I had to point to a team in the top 25 and be like, you shouldn't be there, it's UConn. But they're sitting at 25. And so I would imagine that probably will continue. For me, Auburn is a surprise, 18-1. I mean, we knew they were going to be pretty decent. I didn't think they would be this good and this dominant. Although, again, I do question SEC bias. I also would have Auburn ranked number 1, but I just don't think the SEC is nearly as strong as the rankings indicate. 9 teams in the top 25? No. The Big 12 is still the best conference in college basketball. And you have teams in the Big 12 that are sitting in the outside looking in. So, is Auburn the best team in the country right now? Yeah, I think they are. At least they're the best playing team right now. Duke may have something to say about that now that they're kind of gaining their traction. Iowa State will also have something to say about that. And they're all going to be there in the end. I actually have Auburn, Duke, and Iowa State being 3 of my final 4, with Marquette being the 4th. Now we're going to go over and we're going to take a look at the women. There are no ranked women's matchups tonight, which kind of surprises me. So we're just going to skip over to the rankings. UCLA is ranked number 1. They are not unanimous, but they're pretty close. UCLA ranked number 1. They're 20-0 on the year. South Carolina ranked number 2. They're 19-1. You have Notre Dame at number 3, sitting at 17-2. Southern Cal sitting at number 4 at 18-1. Texas at number 5 at 20-2. I think that Texas is sorely underrated, and I think South Carolina is a little bit overrated. I think Texas and South Carolina should probably switch, and I think they've got the top 5 about right. Then you've got UConn sitting at 6. Dismiss them at your peril, but they're ranked about right. LSU sitting at 7 at 21-1. Ohio State at number 8. TCU at number 9. And Duke at number 10, rounding out the top 10. And then you have number 11, Kansas State. And then you have Kentucky, Oklahoma, Maryland, and North Carolina sitting at 15. Michigan State at 16. NC State at 17. Tennessee, California, and Georgia Tech at number 20. And then you have West Virginia at 21, Alabama, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma State, and Florida State rounding out the top 25 at 16-4. I think the top 25 is about right. I could probably make cases for Baylor and Utah to be in there, maybe pulling out a Vanderbilt and an Alabama. But overall, I don't think that you can necessarily make too much of an argument against either of those teams. I think that the rankings on the women's side are just about right. And so we look at, I'm gonna fast forward a day and see what ranked matchups we have tomorrow. Yeah, so top 25 matchups tomorrow. There are 3 of them. You have Maryland at Penn State. You have UConn on the road at DePaul, and you have Arizona State in Stillwater taking on Oklahoma State. So not a lot of ranked teams in action right now. Thursday is probably going to be, I think, the big day where we'll have several. Yeah, almost all the ranked teams will be in action on Thursday. So the next couple of days, we're going to be able to take some time and really kind of dig into the women's side of rankings and really kind of get a better look at the ranked teams that are on the women's side. I think that in college basketball specifically, I think that they've come so far in the women's college basketball game in the last 5 to 10 years of having more parity, because it used to be in women's college basketball, if you're outside the top 5, you just weren't competitive. And anymore, you really do kind of have a situation where anyone can beat anyone on any given day. And, and so like, as far as that goes, I think the women's game actually surpasses the men's as far as parity. Now, did mention earlier, we're going to talk a little bit of cricket. I know cricket's not a sport that's terribly popular here in the United States, but it's one that is increasing in popularity. Most of us know that they recently started, last year started a professional cricket league in the United States. I think it's called United States Cricket League. And they are actually based out of the DFW Metroplex. But the United States had a women's cricket team. They're participating in the Under-19 Women's Cricket World Cup down in Bangladesh. And the women's team did remarkably well. They made it out of the group play and into the round of the Super Sixes, where they were eliminated ultimately by New Zealand. But the team acquitted themselves very well. They performed very well in the tournament. They got a key win over Ireland, which was what kind of catapulted them into the Super Six round. They were supposed to have a secondary match against South Africa yesterday, but that match got rained out, and so their tournament is now officially over. But the USA under-19 women's cricket team did advance to the Super Sixes, or for those that aren't terribly familiar with cricket, that would kind of be the equivalent of the elimination rounds in like the Soccer World Cup, where you make it out of group play and into the elimination rounds. And so, a good job by the U.S. national team there. I know certainly not the result that they were looking for, but as far as a nation where cricket is still a brand new sport, that's a fair result. And I think what will happen is, the more success that this team has and all the cricket teams in the United States have, the better participation they're going to get. And that's kind of been the problem in the United States with other sports that are popular internationally, but not so much in the US. We can't seem to field a competitive soccer team on the men's side because soccer's still, it's not new here, but it's unproven and it's untested. We don't have any results. Well, success begets success. And the more success that the men's national team has, the better players they'll get. On the women's side, they were successful from the off. And so they don't have a problem getting the best athletes to play women's soccer. And, fielding a team for the women's national team for soccer is not a problem. Now cricket is one that's, like I said, it's a fledgling sport here in the United States. It's brand new. And for those of you that may be cricket fans that are watching, please leave comments on this video. Tell the other viewers, tell them about cricket. Kind of explain a little bit about what it is about cricket, why Americans should care about cricket, why it's such a big deal that the women's national team did make it to the Super Sixes in this round, or in this World Cup. We do have a couple of teasing announcements. So next week we're gonna have interviews all week long. And it's gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be great. We're gonna have an interview discussing Australian rules football. We're going to have a couple of super fans come into the Madhouse, and we're going to talk about their respective teams in regards to the Super Bowl. We're going to discuss a lot of Super Bowl next week because that's coming. We're also going to have a fellow podcaster come in, and we're going to talk some NBA and probably some college basketball as well. So we've got a full week coming up next week. We have a lot of stuff that we're still going to continue to cover this week. We're going to talk some NHL tomorrow. We're going to talk more NBA. We're going to talk women's basketball, women's college basketball. We're going to talk about the state of the WNBA and in general women's sports in the United States. So a lot of things that are coming up that are going to be some fun discussions, things that I look forward to sharing with you. I look forward to hearing your comments and responses as well. I do read all the comments that you guys put, and I do respond to all of them. So if you've got anything that you want to say about this, please feel free to drop me a line, and I will respond to it. And I will if it's something that you really want to hear about here in the Madhouse, let us know, and we'll talk about it in here. It's the Madhouse, and y'all are just as mad as I am, and so this is your house too. So whatever you want to hear about, we're going to discuss. Until next time, this is David Vaughn reminding you that no amount of, that was my old one. This is David Vaughn reminding you that there are good ships, wood ships, and ships that sail the seas, but the best ships are friendships. May they always be. Until next time, take care and God bless.